Hey everybody, it's Rose, and you're watching Queer Shakespeare. While Shakespeare himself worked a lot of queer themes and statement about gender roles into his plays, that's not the only way his works can make a statement about gender and sexuality. For one thing, it's becoming more and more common for Shakespeare festivals and other theater companies to alter the gender of characters in order to really use the text to make a statement. A good example of this is Santa Cruz Shakespeare in California. They've taken on the task of making their casts all gender balanced, so there are an equal number of female actors and male actors. Of course, since many of Shakespeare's plays have far more male characters than female, this leads to a lot of interesting gender swaps. The Colorado Shakespeare Festival has also been following this trend with their casting recently. In their season last year, they cast several women as Greek and Trojan generals in Troilus and Cressida, as well as swapping the genders of the 6 main characters in Comedy of Errors. In this upcoming season, they're going to do a production of Hamlet in which Hamlet and Laertes are played by women, though Ophelia's gender will remain the same. This trend isn't exactly new, though. The first time Hamlet was played by someone considered to be a woman was actually in the 18th century when Charlotte Chark took on the role. Though offstage she took to wearing men's clothing and going by the name Charles, so it's likely she didn't identify as female herself. In 1899, Sarah Bernhardt played Hamlet on stage in London and Paris, and became the first woman to play the role on film in a 1900 movie version. In 1920, another film version of Hamlet was made. This version took it a little farther. The concept for their story was that Hamlet had been born female but raised as a man for the sake of having a male heir in the family. In a 1979 stage production, Hamlet was played by Frances de la Tour in London, and the list just goes on. There are even all-female Shakespeare companies, like the Los Angeles Women's Shakespeare Company, and other companies that just choose to do plays with all-female casts. Gender isn't the only thing that companies change, however. A lot of them also play around with sexuality and how it's portrayed. In some cases, this is simply a matter of choice with no foundings in the script itself, such as the Globe Theatre's A Midsummer Night's Dream, where Oberon, the Fairy King, and Puck, his servant, share a kiss on stage, or the Royal Shakespeare Company's Henry V, where the Dauphin and the Constable of France kiss, despite those characters' contempt for one another in the text. However, in some others, it's more a creative liberty based on evidence in the text, such as the Royal Shakespeare Company's Richard II or National Theatre Live's Coriolanus. It's pretty hard to deny that Richard II was probably queer, both historically and as he's written in Shakespeare's play. The real Richard was notorious for rejecting older, wiser advisors for the sake of surrounding himself with frivolous young courtiers at all times, a practice that was considered by many to be dangerous to the throne and the country. Henry Knighton, a chronicler at the time, consistently uses the word seductor to refer to these men, a word which in medieval Latin meant both seducer and traitor. Elsewhere, he refers to them as seducers to the king, traitors to the king and kingdom, who had beguiled the king and were disturbing the whole realm. Other writers at the time noted Richard's love of feasting and drinking with his young friends, before going off to indulge in other excesses that are not to be named. One man, who sat on a committee determining how Richard's deposition should proceed, even specifically mentioned his sodomies as a reason for his removal. While Shakespeare didn't include a ton of this in his play, there's still one moment where it's undeniably there. This is when Henry Bolingbroke, soon to be King Henry IV, gives a speech to 2 of Richard's men whom he is about to execute. "You have misled a prince, a royal king, a happy gentleman in blood and lineaments, by you unhappy and disfigured queen. You have in manner with your sinful hours made a divorce betwixt his queen and him, broke the possession of a royal bed, and stained the beauty of a fair queen's cheeks with tears drawn from her eyes by your foul wrongs." Mirroring events that weren't exactly uncommon while Richard was on the throne, Bolingbroke states that he's executing the 2 men because they misled and seduced Richard and ruined his marriage by sleeping with him. Here's where the interpretation by the Royal Shakespeare Company comes in. In their version of the play, Richard, played by David Tennant, is very close to the Duke of Umberl, played by Oliver Rix. As Richard's reign begins to come to an end, both of them are struggling with the fact that he may not be king for much longer, and comfort each other constantly. All of this, for the most part, is in the script, but what isn't in the script is Richard kissing Aumerle on the lips to comfort him. At first, Aumerle freezes, but after a second he relaxes into the kiss, leaning into Richard and reaching up to grasp his arm. Another good example of interpretation based on text is National Theatre Live's production of Coriolanus. Coriolanus tells the story of a Roman war captain who has recently been nominated for the role of consul, which is more or less the ancient Roman equivalent of a president, for his role in the war with the Volscians. When his nomination is rescinded and he gets banished, he runs off to his longtime enemy Aufidius, the leader of the Volscian army, and asks Aufidius to kill him in order to spite Rome. Aufidius refuses and instead embraces him, somewhat literally in most performances, and instead convinces him to join his army. Now, throughout the play, Shakespeare puts a lot of emphasis on the enmity between Coriolanus and Aufidius, but he also puts in a lot of sexual tension between the two. Pretty much everything Aufidius says about Coriolanus is a double entendre, meaning wanting to fight him, but also sounding sexual. He says he wants to meet Coriolanus beard to beard, and things like he is mine and I am his. But the most notable instance takes up most of a whole monologue, which he says when Coriolanus comes to him begging to be killed. Let me twine mine arms about that body, where against my grained ash 100 times hath broken scarred the moon with splinters. Here I clip the anvil of my sword, and do contest as hotly and nobly with thy love, as ever in ambitious strength I did contend against thy valor. Know thou first, I loved the maid I married, never man sighed truer breath. But that I see thee here, thou noble thing, more dances my rapt heart than when I first my wedded mistress saw beside my threshold. Why, thou hast beat me out 12 several times, and I have nightly since dreamt of encounters betwixt thyself and me. We have been down together in my sleep, unbuckling helms, twisting each other's throats, and waked half dead with nothing. Yeah. While it isn't too uncommon for people to show the sexual tension between Coriolanus and Aufidius, National Theatre Live's production really goes above and beyond, with Aufidius embracing Coriolanus multiple times, and even kissing him on the lips and head. Their promotional photos really say it all. Alright, that is all for this video. Make sure to click this button here to subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, if they happen, since this is the last one of my senior project, and I've put a link to my last video right here if you missed it. Bye!